Boundaries helps protect your energy. Energy helps protect consistency. And then consistency helps protect your income. What would your business look like if it worked on your worst week? What would you remove? What would you automate? And what would you stop expecting of yourself? Especially around that whole my best week, I just always kind of expected me to be superhuman and get everything done. And obviously, I pushed myself so hard on my good weeks that my bad weeks were worse. And then it would be this thing of, okay, well, now I've got to catch up because, I'm having a good week. So let's do all the things. I'm Tiffany Gleland, your host of the Business Bravery podcast. I'm an Australian marketing strategist, coach, and service provider with over 14 years of experience in online business and marketing. This podcast is for coaches and service providers who are brave enough to do business differently, because when your business actually fits you, it becomes so much easier to show up consistently, talk about what you do, and attract more clients. Here we have honest conversations about visibility, mindset, messaging, sustainable growth, and what it really looks like to grow a business in a way that feels aligned, human, and sustainable. Welcome everybody. I am super excited to get into this episode with you all, talking about planning your business for your worst week. So this goes out to all of the coaches and service providers and even course creators out there who perhaps feel the struggles around, for some of us, it's chronic health issues. For others of us, it's the people, like it's maybe just family stuff coming up, stuff with the kids, that kind of thing. Managing a day job in addition to your business, right? This can apply in a whole host of situations and comes out of some of my experience, plus a conversation that I had with a friend recently, and comes ahead of a call we'll be doing in a couple of weeks, although by the time you hear this, it will have been last month. But we'll be doing a call around boundaries and energy, which is another reason why this has all kind of culminated in this episode, and I'm super excited to get into it. Talking about planning for your worst week. Something else I want to mention too, earlier I said, for people with chronic illness, there's also those of us with funky cycles, right? Like not every week is created equally, right? You have certain ranges of your cycles, and I went through this with a guest on my podcast, Renata Trebing, and she was on a particular episode, and I will do my best to link it below because I didn't know I was going to talk about this, so I don't have the episode number. But if you go to my website and type in Renata, Renata, you'll be able to find it. It's definitely earlier on in the catalogue. But she's a nutritionist. You can find her on Instagram as well. And yeah, she really broke down the whole follicular phase is like where you've got more energy then, and that time leading to ovulation, and then the luteal phase, so that last couple of weeks can be 10 days, 14 days before you have menstruation or whatever, then you've got lower energy. And so yeah, it's just sort of these things that is like, oh my god, you mean it's not just me not trying hard enough? And yeah, just being aware of some of those cycles, planning your business around your worst week, which might be your luteal phase, might be menstruation week or something like that. I don't know. I mean, it could just be a way through for some of us. And this came up in a conversation I had with a friend of mine who juggles chronic illness and is actually building a coffee business. So some more e-commerce and sort of wholesaling and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was just really interesting because he was saying, oh, like my health is getting bad. I think I'm going to have to stop my business. And I just said this thing. I was like, oh, I completely get that. Like we all have that struggle. And even if you don't have a chronic illness, there's definitely times where it's like, oh, this is getting hard, especially when you maybe don't have VAs to help or a team of any kind. There'll be times for all of us when something's come up, right? And it's just, it can be so easy to be like, oh, this is impossible. Like, it was one of the things that just held me back in my business for so long. It's like that thought of, this is impossible. I'm so far behind, my health, my caring for a parent with some special needs part-time, all of these things, right? Yeah. I just sort of said to him, look, I get where you're coming from. I've had that struggle. Something that helped me was starting to plan my business around my worst week. And I had this advice from people for a while before I kind of got into it, because there's just, for me, there's ebbs and flows in my health, and I'm also a manifesting generator. And for anybody who doesn't quite get what that means, I have a tendency to be able to do a lot of things, to manage, juggle a lot of projects, and skip steps and still come out okay. It means that I love starting things, and I tend to, like, so when I'm having a good week, like, it's a week where, oh, how do you do all the things, right? And of course, there's a little bit of former people pleasing and that whole I need to be all things to all people went into a lot of that in the past as well, which I don't have these days. But suffice to say, like, I have left jobs where they had to hire 3 different people to cover me, right? Like, all the tasks that I was doing. So, yeah, this creates this like constant pressure that I had. And for those of us who, like, I mean, I don't know what it is. Like, for me, I plan out my weeks. Like, on a Sunday, I'll sit down and try and plan everything that's going to happen in the following week, right? Personal and business, and put it into a calendar, right? And I have some other systems that help me with some of this, of like, Tuesday, Thursday are client days, Mondays, like my content and podcasting and that stuff. And Wednesday afternoons, I do stuff with mum when she's here. And Fridays are, brave coffee connections and just catch up days and that kind of thing, right? So I have some of those systems. But for me, I just always found that I just was always the most optimistic version of myself. Like, even with, the traditional time blocking, like, I don't do, I don't think I do proper time blocking anymore, but like, just with the traditional advice of, don't forget travel time and don't forget to have breaks between things and stuff. Or actually, most people don't say have breaks, but I have to put breaks in. I've learnt the hard way. So, yeah, I just would just always, along with this whole feeling of like, I'm always behind, I should be doing 500 things. Why can't I do the work of 100 people to build my business type thing? And so, like, trying to always build for my best weeks. And then that whole thing, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, that whole thing of like, planner Tiff is just so optimistic, and then real reality Tiff on that particular day is like, oh, I don't think I have the energy for this, or I can't, I'm not focusing, or I've I have more brain fog and all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah, just like trying to build my business around my best week, when I can have a couple of weeks a month that are bad, and then that can even get a bit longer. It just creates this constant pressure. And okay, so not just this constant pressure, but also constant cycles of shame for obviously not getting everything done, for always being behind. And I don't live in that world quite so much anymore. I've worked on some past stuff and that kind of thing. But yeah, there's definitely can be that whole thing between, hey, I said I was going to do this, and I have integrity and I do what I say I'm going to do. And then that whole, okay, I have integrity, we're having a pain flare up, and I can work for maybe 25 minutes, and then, oh, well, I've done some things where it's like, okay, yeah, I do 20 minutes on, 40 minutes off or something, because I need a break between. Yeah, and that to me, like in the beginning, that was like, oh, I'm letting myself down. I'm not doing all the things. And yet now it's more of a, okay, that's still integrity. And I still have the freedom to move things around a bit. But now planning for my worst week. So for me, my worst week is like, okay, I might have 3 good hours. It might take me 5 hours to do 3 hours worth of work. Just like when things just take you 3 times as long and you just need so many more breaks. Your worst week could look completely different. It, it might, okay, I don't want to say it might be a whole week off or something, but, it might be half days or just less things and that kind of thing. So this is where having these boundaries or just these sort of, and having like systems and batching and automation, and that's what I'm building my business to be at the moment. Like I had to find some inspiration, some people who run their business a few days a week and yet make multiple six figures. One of those, she runs the Perfectionism podcast. Hold on a second, let me pause for a sec. What's it called? Okay. It's called the Perfectionism Project, right? She's actually a fellow Australian, but she does a lot of her work with people in North America. Like all of her deadlines are like New York time, right? She's been running a podcast forever, but she talks about like forever, like for years. What's she up to now? She's on episode 590, so that will give you some things. And so far as I know, she's been consistent with like every week getting an episode out. So it's not like my 100 episodes that I've been doing now and it's taken me 3 years to get here because I haven't been, every week. And I mean, she's even had kids through that. But yeah, she runs her business 3 days a week, and those 3 days are like I think between 9 and 3 ish, or 2:30 or whatever, when she has to go pick up the kids, and she drops them off at work and all that. She has team members and everything who help her as well. But yeah, like she just like that's one example. Another example is Brooke Castillo, who is a big coach in the US and has like I don't know, she's like going for 10 million. Is she going for 10 million? Or I don't know. She's got lots and lots. So she runs the Get Coached podcast, and I used to be part of her paid program, Self Coaching Scholars, until she shut it down. But yeah, she worked, she would say she worked 3 days a week, and she worked 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. those 3 days a week. Of course, she has like massive team and all that kind of stuff to handle all the details for her thing. Because yeah, they do the life coach school, right? So there's a couple of examples, and there's more of them. And the woman who runs the Perfectionism Project, who I should know her name, apologies about that. It's been a while since I've listened to that one. That one can, as much as it's helpful, it can sometimes spark my anxiety and my perfectionism. So I have to sort of take it easy for me, but it doesn't mean that her stuff is actually based on Brooke Castillo's system. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, anyway, I have gone off on a tangent. But yes, finding examples of people who can actually do it. And it sounds crazy, when you think, oh, I want to run my business in this really weird, unconventional way. And, like, what do I want to do? Like my dream would be 3, 6, 9, 12 hours a week. Yeah, like 10 to 12, maybe up to 15 or something like that. And so what I've been doing is been putting in systems. I have a couple of part-time assistants who are helping me, and I'm aiming to hire another one to help me with some client work and that kind of thing. Because for me, when I have a pain flare up, sometimes it can knock me out for 3 to 5 days. And trying to push through on those days just makes all the pain stuff go longer and makes me sick, like I get a cold or something on top of it. Yeah, and like these days, like I have things set up so that I do things in batches. Even my client work, I'm able to do it in batches now and sort of plan ahead of time and that kind of thing. And yeah, and at the moment I'm going through and I'm in that phase where like my batches are just getting a little bit bigger so that I can get to slightly bigger batches. So, for example, I sat down last week and did a bunch of my emails. So I send out emails generally once a week for the Brave Coffee Connections people. I have another really cold list who haven't had emails from me in forever. And I feel like I just want to go in and maybe just like delete every name on there because I can't handle it anymore. Anyway, that's boundaries. Okay. That would definitely be some kind of boundary. So, yeah, there's doing some of that batching, some of that automation. So, yeah, I sat down and I was trying to do emails in the week because I wanted to share what Brave stuff I'm doing, but I've had to transition into some sort of batching situation because I just wasn't hitting the emails. The week of Brave Coffee Connections, those guys get 2 emails. One, a reminder it's coming up in a couple of days, and one, it's happening in a couple of hours. I don't know if I should add one. We're starting in 15 minutes. Not sure if I should try that or not, but yeah. So these are things that just they seem, I don't know, when I first heard the term around boundaries, I was kind of like, what is that? What do you mean by boundaries? It was kind of sad to say this like completely foreign concept, but yeah, like having boundaries around my working hours helped me to manage my energy. And yeah, like on my better weeks, obviously I can do a little bit more work if I want to, but I have just found that if I stop trying to push myself hard on those best weeks, then I have better weeks on my worst weeks. And so planning for my worst weeks. Before we jump back into the episode, I wanted to quickly share something that's helped me massively in my own business. And this is around the areas of just procrastination, perfectionism, and subtly sabotaging my own progress. Some time back, I noticed that I was overthinking content suddenly, especially like video content or even podcasting content. And normally when I go through that, I just think, okay, I just need to get focused. I need a better plan. I need to make some decisions. And it wasn't coming to me. And I was in this mastermind at the time and they had these amazing journaling prompts and they are money focused, but this was just a surprising breakthrough because I discovered that the things that were holding me back and I was subtly sabotaging things and not getting back to potential clients and not just doing the things that I normally do so easily, I realized actually through these journaling prompts that it was more to do with money, beliefs, self-worth and charging and that kind of stuff, and that I had these repeating behaviors from things that I had picked up in childhood. And I know that's not a new thing when it comes to money stuff, but this thing around the first memory of money, it was such a breakthrough. And I've talked about it here on the podcast before. So I just wanted to share these prompts with you guys completely for free because they helped me go from like 2K months to my first 4K week in business. And it just sort of stopped me subtly sabotaging my own progress and doing those tasks. If this is something that you notice in your own business and you want to check it out, it's completely free and the link will be in the show notes. So you can grab it from there. Thanks so much, and I'll let you get back to the episode. I guess a lot of that with the boundaries is saying no to certain things. Technically, with the 3 hours a day that I want to be doing, I'm not sure if this podcast would be something that people would be like, yeah, do that, because like it could nearly, the podcast before I hired my assistant to help me was taking like 15 hours a month with between recording, editing, repurposing content, getting it posted, all that kind of stuff for the 4 episodes a month or something like that. So you can kind of understand that, yeah, how that didn't always happen. So I'm just going to pause and look at my notes because, oh yeah, I mentioned that sort of stuff. Oh, something else I'm doing is I'm getting into using ClickUp for systems so that when I hire my next person, there's a lot of systems and things are systemized so that they can help me better. In fact, I would have hired that person by now, but I realized I just want to have a bunch of stuff in place. One of my worst things that I've done in the past is like, oh, I need someone to take this off my plate because I hate it and I'm not getting to it and it needs to happen and I need to hire that person. And then I have to, I'm like, great, you're hired. You'll be starting in 2 weeks. And then that gives me 2 weeks to turn around and like create a whole bunch of training stuff and systems and things. And it's just like, I want to do that ahead of time. That's what we're going to do this time, right? With the ClickUp systems, I have been in a group for that. Why is my brain going blank? I hadn't planned to bring this up, so it's not in my notes. But one of the members of Brave Coffee Connections runs an awesome group for systems, and she's also guest on this podcast, which will be coming up, which you would have actually, by the time you hear this, you will have already heard, maybe. Olga from Next Day Executive. Right, if you go into Instagram and look up Next Day Executive, then that's her. And she runs a group and she teaches stuff about systems, and it's been amazing. So just a little shout out. One of the benefits of coming along to the Brave Coffee Connections calls. Yeah, one of the cool things about ClickUp is that, yes, I have to pay a little bit of money, but I was doing stuff in Notion, but yeah, ClickUp just really helps with the putting stuff, like remembering stuff and keeping things off my plate. So for example, I have to do bookkeeping tasks every month, and I know for most people you can just be like, yeah, I'll do bookkeeping, and you'll sit down and do it. For me, I need to like break it down into like, okay, I'm going to open up the statements. I'm going to move them to this folder so that my bookkeeper has them. I'm going to go through and look at the accounts and do this and do that. And I need it all broken down. And it's just awesome in ClickUp that I can just set it so that at a particular day of each month, it'll just pop up with those things, and all of those little subtasks will be inside. And I know Asana can do similar stuff, but I don't know, I never really clicked with Asana. But ClickUp seems to be really hitting the spot because it's like bright colours and things that just help, and so far so good. So there's also other things with boundaries around clients, what you'll do and won't do, and the whole overworking, over-delivering thing, which, comes up in Brave Coffee Connection calls and comes up in conversations all the time. But it's not about perfection. It's about just reducing decision fatigue, for me at least, and just making it easy. So on my worst weeks, I don't have to overthink things. I don't have a whole bunch of mental stuff. It's just things are there. And I will say, like, I'm in the middle of building all this, so don't listen to me and go, oh, it's great, she's got everything sorted out. That's, I I have a vision of like where I want to get to, but I am in the messy middle of building this stuff. So for some things, like the bookkeeping, I have that sort of set up, and for other things, and for the podcasting, I have that set up. But then for my like client work, I'm the only one who handles it at the moment, and so while there's systems, they're rattling around in my head, and yeah, I need to pull those out, and SOPs and all of that fun stuff that just does not light up a manifesting generator, let me tell you. Although it does if you get really super excited about systems and like how it all works and unlocks things. But honestly, the getting down and actually doing it part is so much fun. Don't want to. What does it? Tell me you were born to be a manager without telling me you were born to be a manager. It's like, I love ideas. Actually putting them into practice, not quite as much fun. So I guess with this whole planning for your worst week and just thinking about boundaries and your energy, which all helps you. Like, boundaries helps protect your energy. Energy helps protect consistency, right? And then consistency helps protect your income. And can't believe I'm at the end of the episode and I haven't really mentioned like how this all links into income and growing your business. But if you are trying to be forever working to your best week and therefore always feeling like you're not doing enough, and then you're always behind, and therefore there's no room for extra clients, like these are things I've been in forever, then it's really hard to grow, because people can sense when you feel overwhelmed. And like when you're feeling overwhelmed, it's kind of like you put up this like big brick wall between you and opportunities. and especially like clients and just those things just don't come to you. And I know that's a bit more of a law of attraction thing, but if you think about it and you've been in that situation, you think back and feel it. If I don't know, depending on who you are, I do anyway. I look back and I go, oh yeah, I was definitely, especially with the perfectionism and wanting to do a great job for everyone and not wanting to let people down, and yeah. So now I guess as a result of all of this stuff that I've said today, it's like, what would your business look like if it worked on your worst week, right? What would you remove? What would you automate? What would you stop expecting of yourself? Oh, look at these things. These should be prompts. I wonder if there'll be prompts. Obviously, I created all the prompts for Brave Coffee Connections for a 12-month period, but I didn't, and I looked over them and that looks great, but I don't remember what I created back in August, for each month. So each month it's kind of a surprise to me. And sometimes I work through ahead of them, ahead of the call. And other times I'm like, hey guys, I'm working through this with you right now. And because sometimes that just leads to even more fun. Yeah. Anyway, so these are some great reflections. What would your business look like if it worked on your worst week, which I just think is fun. And it's actually something I think I just want to sit down and do a bit more on, actually, as I've been talking this out. What would you remove? What would you automate? And what would you stop expecting of yourself? Especially around that whole my best week, I just always kind of expected me to be superhuman and get everything done. And obviously, I pushed myself so hard on my good weeks that my bad weeks were worse. And then it would be this thing of, okay, well, now I've got to catch up because, I'm having a good week, so let's do all the things. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just feeling that discomfort. The discomfort of telling you guys that. Also, realizing I meant to change jumpers before recording this, this thing, sweaters, whatever you guys call them. So, I'm wearing the same outfit for both, and they're back to back. Oh, what an epic fail. Okay, fun times. Let's not think about that too hard. All right. So, if this episode has helped you in some way, I feel like I did the boundaries. I'm just going back through my notes. Oh, yeah, I talked about that. Yep, okay, cool. So, yeah, if this has hit you in some form or another and helped you have an aha moment, if you're going to sit down and maybe think about, okay, what if my business, what would it look like if it worked on my worst week, And so, and that worst week is not one where it's you're beating yourself up and feeling bad about being behind, like a lot of my worst weeks, but more like, hey, this is part of how I work. This is part of how my family works, there might be particular weeks or days where, the kids have more sporting activities or something like that. So, yeah, what would it look like? And to also be kind to yourself in that worst week. That's what I'm trying to get at. Not just your worst week, but a worst week where you're kind to yourself through it. You give yourself space, more breaks, that kind of thing. What would you remove? What would you automate? And what would you stop expecting of yourself? To be all things to all people, to be perfect. A question that's not written in my notes here, but what could you delegate to in order to help you with that worst week? Ooh. Let me know what you think of this episode. I'd love to know if this helped you in some way, if you're going to do something. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like these solo episodes have taken a turn as I've tried to keep them shorter. She says, having gone past the 20-minute thing. Anyway, reach out, come over and find me over at Instagram at Tiffany G Studios, TIFFANY, G for golf, STUDIOS. No spaces, no underscores. Come and find me, have a chat. I'd just love to hear what you think of this episode. And, and even if you have more to say, hey, you didn't mention this and I thought of that, because that could become a whole different episode. So, yeah. All right. Thank you so much for listening. That's it from me. Bye for now. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Business Bravery podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, I'd really appreciate it if you shared the podcast with a friend or left a quick review on your favorite podcast app. It generally helps more coaches and service providers discover the show. And if you'd like to stay connected outside the podcast, you'll find links in the show notes to connect with me on Instagram and the link to the 5 money journaling prompts. Until next time, keep building your business in a way that actually fits you, one brave step at a time.